What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video on my Subaru rally build. So if you're new here and you're not sure exactly what I'm building or why I'm doing it, currently I'm building my 2.5 RS to run in stage rally. Right now the car is pretty much just a rolling shell. I've got like the main hoop done, rocker boxes for the main hoop, seam welding and strut tower plating, and that's about it. All these things have been covered in my previous videos, so if you're interested in seeing those and you haven't, go check them out. And today we're going to be continuing on the cage construction. So today my primary focus is going to be on making the front hoops or the front laterals. Now I'm going to go over the rules in a second on what designs you can actually make, but the design that I'm choosing is going to run from the main hoop as close to the roof line as possible and then follow the A-pillar all the way down, eventually hitting 90 degrees and coming straight down towards the floor. Now I still have to make the rocker boxes where the actual cage feet are going to go, but I wanted to see exactly where the front lateral ends before I design those. Now before I actually get into measuring and figuring out exactly where the bends are going to go, I want to talk for a second about the rule book again and the allowed cage configurations. So obviously I already know the design that I'm going to follow with my roll cage because I already designed the main hoop and I made it. But there are a few options. So if you haven't seen the video on the main hoop, I'm going with FIA Rule 253 Tack 3. And that consists of main hoop and then 2 forward hoops or forward lateral bars and 1 windshield bar. All right, we are ready to actually start measuring and figure out exactly where we're gonna put these bends. So the first thing that I need to do is get the total length roughly of the tube that I'm going to need. And from there, I'm going to figure out where halfway would be on it and then mark that. And that way I can actually work from the outside to the start of my bends. Since I'm only gonna have 2 bends, one here and the other one here, it'll be a lot easier because then I only have to measure from the center out to where the first bend starts on both sides. And I don't have to figure out like this bend's gonna start here and then I gotta measure from there. So it's a lot easier if you're not doing production style bending to work from the outside. All right, let's actually get started on this thing now. So our total length that I got was 76 inches. Now when you measure like the way that I did, where you held it tight against the body and followed along, obviously the tube can't make that many bends and stay that tight to the chassis. So your tape measure is gonna come out a little bit longer. So I also left like 1 inch or 2 on both sides. That way I would have some extra that I'd have to cut off. So I'm not comfortable perfectly with my measurements right now. If you are, you can probably be a little bit more precise, but I'm not, and I would rather have extra material than bend this tube perfectly and then realize that I'm 1 inch short or something like that. We know exactly where halfway is. I'm going to measure from where I want it to meet up with on the main hoop to where 38 inches lands on the chassis, and then mark it, and then we can actually get where our first bend is going to start on this side and then the second bend on the lower side. So now that we have the center point marked up, we're good to grab our cheater and figure out exactly where we want this bend to land. That way we can figure out where to start it. All right, so this step's gonna kind of take you just eyeballing exactly where you want the tube to actually land. So I want this tube to tuck up as high and as close to the roof as possible. That way I have more clearance and it's not coming down and actually like impeding my exit or anything like that. Plus, the closer I get it to the roof line, the stronger the chassis will be because I will be able to actually tie it in. And in the event of like a rollover or something like that, there's going to be less of the chassis getting deformed. So you always want to stay as tight as possible while still being able to weld the bars 100% around. Now that we have the start of our first bend, we're ready to get the angle that we actually need to put it to. So as you can see, the roof line has a slight downward angle to it, and it's not just perfectly 90 degrees and then gets up to here and then goes down at whatever angle this is. So you have to compensate for that. And it's really simple to do that. So you just get the angle at which this is downward sloping, and then you get the angle of the A-pillar, and you're just gonna take the difference between the two, and that's going to be your bend radius for the first bend. So, just gonna set this in the channel. and I've got very slight bend of 4 degrees. Now in the A-pillar, we have 31 degrees. So you're gonna take 31 and minus 4 from it, because that was the angle of this, and we're gonna have the radius for our first bend, so 27 degrees. All right, now I need to get the measurement from where we're gonna start our first bend to the center of the tube. And it's right at 15.5 inches. Now we're ready to actually start figuring out exactly where we're going to start our second bend. So one of the important things that you need to figure out and factor into where you're going to put this bend is where the tube is actually going to end up. That way, when you weld it up, you'll be able to get fully around it. So if you end it where it's all the way over here, tucked up past the door frame, it's going to make it really difficult to fully weld. And you may even have to remove some of the outside body panels just to actually get all the way around your weld. I've seen people have to do that, and that looks just terrible. I don't feel like hacking a huge hole into the side of the car and then re-welding it up later on. I would if it was necessary, but I don't really think it is. So I've got this square set up to where the outside edge is where I want the inside portion of the tube to be. So if I follow and I make my bend to where the outside of the tube is going to be in line with this straight edge, then it'll put it at a good position for me to weld once I build my cage feet. Well, we got the mark of where we're going to actually put our second bend, so we can get the distance from the center of our tube to the start of that bend. We have 11 3/4. So 11 3/4 of an inch from the center to the start of the bend. Well, we've got the distance that we need to start our second bend. Now we got to figure out exactly how many degrees we're going to bend it. So I want to leave a little bit of wiggle room because I can always re-bend a bend. You can't unbend it, so it's not that hard with your marking to just put it back in the tube bender and bend it a couple more degrees. So we've got the 4 degree for the roof slant, and then this is 27. So theoretically, to put this right at 90, we should do a 58 or 59 degree bend, depending on what I want. So we'll just call it a little bit safer. We'll do 55 for the first one and kind of see where that ends. I would much rather just re-bend it later and line up that mark than have to throw that away. There is one more measurement that we have to get, and this one is the trickiest to get, and that is your offset angle. So there's a few ways that you can actually get this offset. Obviously you can get the whole dimensions of the car, and you can draw it in some sort of CAD program and actually get the offset that way. I don't really have access to any CAD software, so can't do that. Another thing is you can make 2 bends on 2 separate tubes, and then you sleeve them with whatever size tubing would actually fit it, and then you just rotate them until they match up with the car. I'm also not going to do that because I don't really want to waste a bunch of tubes on just a template piece. I'll honestly probably waste enough just making these, so I don't want to do extra bending and wasting of tubes. So tried to come up with a different way to do this. So to do this, I'm just going to use my cheater pipe and my magnetic protractor and try to figure out the angle. See if it works. So I'm going to lay it exactly where the tube's going to go. It's a nice flattering view again in my face. And I'm going to rotate it until it lines up with the angle of the A-pillar. And then I'm going to get that angle. Alright, so I got 27 degrees as an offset. Now there is a guy that bent a full cage for a GC or a GM coupe, and he put all of his bend radiuses and offsets and stuff like that. So I'm going to kind of compare and see if my offset makes sense based off that guy's calculations, because I don't really want to waste it if I'm doing something completely wrong. I looked it up. So he bent his at 28 degrees of an offset. I said 27, so that's pretty close. We'll meet in the middle. I'll say 27.5, and we'll see how it goes. I'm fully prepared to waste some tubes, definitely. But we'll see how it goes. I really need to start bending because I've been measuring for a while off camera, because like I'll record it, then I'm double checking and whatnot. So kind of to that point where I just need to do it.
Just do it!
And see how it comes out. And from there, we'll see what kind of corrections we have to make. So now we need to mark the center of our tube. That way we can get the start of our two bends that we're gonna do. I'm also going to put which bend is which so I don't forget. So the 11 3/4 one, that was 55 degrees. The other one, 27 degrees. Now let's see if I knew what I was doing. Building a roll cage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Think about it first.
All right, and now comes the tricky part. So it's pretty dark out. I apologize. Got a little sidetracked. Someone came over to talk to me. That's a problem working with your garage door open. Anyway, now to set the offset for the second bend, I need to tilt the first bend down 27 degrees. So I'm still going to line up my mark. I set enough tension on the actual bolt. And now it can freely rotate, and it has just enough tension to hold it in place. Now I'm just going to put my angle finder on there and set it at 27. So you still need to make sure that your bender is level and that your angle finder is fine with it. So got it set at 27. This is good. Just got to tighten this up, set some preload, and we're bending it to 27 degrees. Okay, so I've been messing with it for a while. I didn't want to film it because I was literally just finagling it, see if I actually even like the bar and how it fits, and I really don't know if I do. All I did was trim it a little bit just to get it to fit in here, so I had to take a couple inches off that side and this side. I mean, it's not terrible, but there's just a couple of weird things that I don't really like. So I went a little bit too much on my offset. When I measured the offset actually laying on the ground, I guess I didn't do a good job of measuring it when it was in the bender, because I have got 30 degrees of offset. So it's off by a little bit, quite a little bit, so a decent amount. I was shooting for 27, and I think if I got 27 it would have been like right on the money, but 30 doesn't look right, and you can definitely tell. I don't really like how this fits up here. I think I should have started the bend a little bit earlier, and then maybe you've just gone a little bit shallower of a bend, and then it probably wouldn't have tucked as high up here, but it would have followed the A-pillar a little bit better and not had such a large gap right here, which, I mean, the gap's not that bad, but I know I can get it closer. So here's the fitment on the outside. It looks good from this angle. It's really hard to tell, but it's got a decent gap. You can see it drops a little bit below the A-pillar, so I'm thinking that if I start the bend like right around here, I guess, and then do a little bit shallower of an angle, then it'll actually follow this a little better. And then all of that is fine, so it tucks in here fine, but then there's the real issue, is my offset. We're bending a different tube. I'm not happy with this fitment at all. Time to do it right. Well, before I make my final decision on if I'm going to keep it or not, I need to throw this bend back into the bender I'd like to get at least 1 more or 2 more degrees out of it just to put this exactly where I want it to go. It's almost there, but it's off like 1/4 of an inch. So should be like 1 degree. Should put me right exactly where I want to go. And it'll also move this down just a little bit more, which will actually tuck this up into the A-pillar just a tad bit more. So once I do that, and then I notch this side, I think that this will be good. We could just take the same measurements over to the other side, and these should be done. All right, so I got this side in. I bent that one more degree. I think I'm happy with the fitment. It's not too bad. So it touches all throughout here, here, and like down here and whatnot, and it comes out far enough. I think I'm happy with it. I'll notch it tomorrow and do the other side tomorrow, because I think I could use some sleep. Spent too much time on this one side. I think I need a break for a little while and come back with a fresh start tomorrow. Well, I need to trim it, but it fits in there with friction pretty well. Once I trim a little bit off this side, I guess I'll actually see. I'm going to compare how long it is from the end of the bend to where I made the notch on the other side. That way I don't make it too short and then end up with like a crooked main hoop, or just make this one junk, because it seems like it fits pretty good compared to the other side, which I mean, it fits about the same as the other side, but pretty good for the first attempt. And it's shoved in there and it's way too long right now.
Come on!
And it's roughly notched. Just gotta clean it up with the flap disc and then slowly mold it to the shape that you need. Alright, like 12th time was the charm. I just went really slow, slowly removing material and marking it as I need it. But I think it's good. I'll let you guys see it, but the fitment's pretty much identical to the other side, so pretty happy about that. So fitment is pretty good. I still need to bevel it a little bit, but I'm going to pull all the tubes off and clean them once I actually am planning on welding them. But as you can see, fitment's pretty good here. This will drop down a little bit more to match that side. I just have to trim the bottom just a tiny bit. I'll do that once I actually build the boxes though. Well, front laterals are completely done. Got them both notched. I really like the fitment. It definitely tucks in there really well. Apologize for the super long video. If you made it this far, that's awesome. I'm really happy for that. I didn't mean to make it that long. I actually took out a lot of stuff, so like I showed a lot of the notching and stuff like that and how I was doing that, but I can save that for another video where they're actually like gonna be shorter. But anyway, super happy about the fitment. Those are probably the trickiest bars to bend out of the whole cage, at least that's what I've heard, but it was definitely tricky for me to get the fitment just right, but super happy about it. So next thing I'm gonna do is build the front boxes for these things to sit on, and then after that, I don't know, probably like remove the rear glass and plate the rear strut towers or something like that, and then move on to the windshield bar and roof bars. But anyway guys, that's all I got. Appreciate you guys watching if you made it this far, and if you're new here, subscribe if you like it. I'm gonna be posting just about as regularly as I have been, so yeah, you guys have a good one.